Hello friends, I am Shukla, and today I am going to deliver a lecture on environmental concerns, eco-criticism and Indian English literature. So my first part of the lecture is going to be on environmental concerns, where I am going to discuss with you certain environmental disasters that we have experienced in the past. And ultimately, towards the end of the lecture of this first part, I am going to arrive on the reason why I am going to discuss the environmental disasters first. So I hope you can see the slideshow that I have prepared for this purpose. So beginning with the major ecological catastrophes of 21st century, and you can see, though they are not in chronological order, they are in the descending chronological order. So first we come over to the first one that I have taken up is the Hurricane Harvey, hitting the state of Texas in USA in 2017. And it was a devastating hurricane which displaced so many people. Thousands and thousands of people were displaced and killed in this hurricane. Then next comes the East Africa drought in 2011, and it was the worst in the past 60 years. It was a bad drought, and it again left so many people killed and so many cattle dead. And the pictures of this drought that surfaced online and in the social media, they were very disturbing. Then coming over to the Haiti earthquake in 2010, and you must be knowing that Haiti experienced somewhere around 52 earthquakes, and lakhs of people were dead in this earthquake. Then again, a very unique catastrophe struck Afghanistan in 2008, and it was the Afghanistan blizzard. And this blizzard was so bad that the temperatures fell below minus 30 degrees. Just think of it, in Afghanistan, the temperatures fell below minus 30 degrees. And so many people were killed, many were rendered amputated, and around 3 lakh cattle were dead in this blizzard. Then, of course, you know about the tsunami that happened in 2004. The world was shook with this tsunami. It was an earthquake in the sea of the magnitude of 9.5 on Richter scale that came in the Indian Ocean, and probably most of you must be, aware of what happened during that tsunami, how many people were killed, so many houses, properties, everything was destroyed. Then I have taken up the heat wave of Europe, and it was a never seen before event that Europe experienced. And the estimated deaths in this heat wave was around 35,000. Then coming over to the Mozambique floods in 2000 due to the incessant rains. And again, you can, assess how many people must have died in a country like Mozambique due to these floods. Then we shouldn't be forgetting the SARS outbreak of 2002 and 2004, between 2002 and 2004, which originated initially in China, but we were not aware of it till we also got struck with COVID-19 in 2019. And you are really well aware of what happened since November 2019, and still we are suffering from that. So coming over to the next slide, which discusses what is an environmental disaster. Normally speaking, what we define as an environmental disaster is an eventuality that occurs due to natural reasons. And most of the time we say that it is an act of God. If you must have seen the movie OMG, you might have, that was a very satirical representation of this kind of an eventuality, which we term as an act of God. But I have put a question mark over there because this is a question to ponder over, that is this really an act of God or something which is man-made? And coming back again to the definition, an eventuality that occurs due to natural reasons, resulting in mass destruction of life, nature, and property. And I would like to highlight over here the term life, because life indispensably includes that of other non-human living beings, that is animals, and we also take up nature in this context. Some of you might say that why are we discussing these environmental issues now? Because they have been happening perhaps since since the man came into being. Yes, definitely. I do agree that natural catastrophes have been happening in the past as well. But I take this data from Oxfam International, and this is an organization which was founded in 1942 at Oxford. And this is called the Oxford Community for Famine Relief. So the data of Oxfam International says that the number of climate-related disasters has tripled in the last 30 years. And they say that between 2006 and 16, the rate of global sea level rise was 2.5 times faster than it was for almost all of the 20th century. More than 20 million people a year are forced from their homes by climate change. They are displaced, they have to migrate because of this. And they say that the United Nations Environment Programme estimates that adapting to climate change and coping with damages will cost developing countries around $140 to $300 billion per year by 2030. So this is not going to stop, but this is going to, aggravate further. The reasons for what we are experiencing today, the environmental degradation that we are experiencing today, we see that the reasons, I have listed them as first being the development based on the advancement of technology. We can say that for the past 400 years after industrialization, but more in the last 50 years, the model of development that we have followed has been so that it has, added to the environmental degradation. Then urbanization. You know what urbanization means. Coming over of the villages, which we see as those units where at least the nature is preserved and is conserved, but people are now shifting from their villages to the cities, or the villages are gradually converting into the towns, and with more and more development, they are taking the shape of cities. The concretization of the villages, which is happening. Another aspect is population explosion. The more the population, the more we need the natural resources, and the more natural degradation is happening because of this. Then there are certain, social, political, and economic reasons as well. I'll just give you some examples of social. Initially, we used to, you just think over this, that initially there was one big family living in one big house, and the cooking was done in just one kitchen for all of them. Now we have, disintegrated into nucleus families, and every household needs a different, a different setup, more resources, exploitation of more resources, and more degradation of the nature. In social pattern, one thing also has taken place is that now, as the society is growing, we need more and more houses for people to live in. More and more, the forests are being cleared up for the housing and other projects of the, for other projects that is human-centric, related to humans. And this is also, added to the degradation of the environment. Then coming over to the political ones. So it's very easy to understand that because of certain political compulsions and necessities, the governments, they are, they get inclined to use the natural resources and degrade the environment further. I'll just give you one example, and that is of the RA forest in Mumbai. So for some times back, there was a furor over the clearing of the RA forest for making a metro shade for the metro trains over there. But thanks to the environmental activists, that project has for now been stalled. But till when, we don't know. Then we can think over we can talk about the road constructions that takes place in so many areas. And for making the roads, so many areas are cleared of the trees that grow around. So many areas are, so many forests are cleared for this purpose. Then coming over to certain economic reasons. Economic reasons involve, one example again I would give you over here, like the families who are not so well-to-do. So these poor families, they go to the forests, they go to the greener areas of the surroundings, and they cut trees for their fuel purposes because they cannot afford gas cylinders at their homes. So these are certain economic issues. There are certain economic issues which lead people, or rather force people, to use the natural resources, to exploit the natural resources, and to further degrade the environment. And last but not least, but very important aspect is for pleasure purposes. Pleasure purposes include the hunting, which is still not illegal, which is still legal in so many countries, and people kill animals for their own pleasure. For there are so many other reasons for killing animals and destroying the ecology for purposes of for their own pleasure, for their own happiness, for their hobbies, pursuing their hobbies, and this has further resulted in the degradation of the environment. Now, what ensues is my question. And you can see over here, it's a cycle. First, I start with climate change. What it results, what it ensues, right? So climate change leads to, when there is a change in the climate, what it leads to? It leads to the rising temperatures. I'm sorry for the words are broken, and they are not, you might not be able to clearly understand them. But the second circle talks about rising temperatures. Rising temperatures of the air, of the water, of the earth. Now, what this rising temperature leads to? Yes, it leads to the rise in the water level and of the air pressure. The rising temperatures definitely leads to rise in the water level and the air pressure. Now, the rise in the water level leads further to floods, and rise in the air pressure and in the atmospheric temperature leads to hurricanes, earthquakes, and wildfires. You might be knowing of the California fires that has been, every year there is a huge fire which runs for altogether for months altogether in California and US. Then this further leads to environmental degradation because flooding destroys the ecology, including the animals and the nature. Hurricanes do the same, earthquakes do the same, and wildfires do the same. So it leads further to environmental degradation. And again, this environmental degradation, it leads to climate change. So it's a very vicious circle that is happening, which needs to be stopped, but somehow we are not able to stop it somewhere. Maybe it's the lack of intention on the part of the governments and the people, or maybe some other reason. So here is a quotation that I have taken from Ban Ki-moon while he was addressing in the 66th address in the 66th convention of the UN that was held on September 13, 2011. And he says, saving our planet, lifting people out of poverty, advancing economic growth, these are one and the same fight. We must connect the dots between climate change, water scarcity, energy shortages, global health, food security, and women's empowerment. Solutions to one problem must be solutions for all. And you must notice that he has put saving our planet as number one in his priority list, because if you save your planet, all other problems would be automatically solved. So this is the need of the time, that we should be able to save our planet. So what are the indicative patterns? And as I have discussed earlier also, that our model of development followed for the last 400 years in general and last 50 years in particular has been so faulty. And for who? For who? For development on what terms and conditions? On what cost? We have to think over this. We have to ponder over this. Sense of superiority of man due to sciences and scientific discoveries. We think that we have become God, and you might have come across certain news that in a couple of decades, perhaps man is going to conquer over death as well, and people are not going to die of diseases. So somewhere we have, started thinking that we are gods and nothing else is required. And that is why we have been wronging our ecology, thinking that we can, change everything, and we whatever we have to do for the betterment of humans. And that is why we have been wronging the ecology for so many years. We have long-lasting serious effects of what we are doing. And as all of you know, whenever any calamity occurs, whenever there is any casualty, in cases of any eventuality, who are the worst sufferers? The downtrodden and poor, and the women, children, and old. So they suffer so much because of this. So they have, the worst suffering group is of these people. Then we have migration and displacement. Naturally, when there is a calamity, destruction all around, people are forced to leave their places. They have to migrate to a new place. There is displacement. And what all not comes with displacement and migration? Deaths occur. So many deaths occur, which lead us to psychological effects of these degradations, these catastrophes, and trauma. This results in trauma of the people. And I take this quotation from Victorian Council of Social Service, which says that increased mental health issues, alcohol abuse, domestic violence, chronic diseases, they all result after an environmental casualty. Then we have economic effects also, because unemployment, it leads to unemployment. There is a resource crunch because of the destruction all around, which leads to inflation. And again, the worst sufferers are the poor. So, this point you will definitely very easily understand because of what is going around us since 2019, what Corona has done to all of us. We still are surviving, but just think of the poor people. And you must have come across so many stories of the sufferings of the poor during the Corona times. So what are the solutions to all this? First of all, afforestation. We should first stop clearing our forests for any purpose, for any purpose, and start planting more and more trees. Something must be done about the population control. Then certainly about pollution control, using biodegradable products, and again, last but not least, and the most important, is increasing awareness amongst the people about the nature, about the effects of exploiting nature. And this is where literature steps in. So what is the literature connection? I'm going to give a very layman definition. It's a fact that literature documents society, and the layman definition, as you all know, that literature is the mirror of society. I agree that it's a very, very common definition, but that's the fact. Why? Because literature is an inescapable part of human life. Whatever ups and downs the humans face, the society face, it gets documented in literature. And it won't be, we won't be wrong in saying that literature is as old as humans themselves. You know about literature and the literary theories that have been propounded, which have political, social, economic, and cultural orientations. Why? Because there is a very strong bond between literature and culture. And here I would like to quote from Nancy Easterlin's article, The Functions of Literature and the Evolution of Extended Mind, where she says that literature is a highly complex cultural product. And to support this, I take a quote from Scott Russell Sanders, who is an environmentalist as well as a literature. And he says, however accurately it reflects the surface of our times, literature that never looks beyond the human realms is profoundly false and therefore pathological. So we need to avoid, not to avoid, but we should be, thinking about literature that is not human-centric, but which looks beyond the humans, because else it would prove itself to be false. And here we start discussing about, and this leads us to rethinking literature through eco-criticism, which would be the second part of my lecture on this topic.